All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it, especially with COVID and everything kind of putting a damper in things and changing plans pretty quickly. So before we get started, I want to just give our new members or members who didn't have the chance to come in December to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about your background, what you're interested in as far as this board. We'll go from there. So Lori, would you like to start?
Hey, Lori Lawrence, appointed by Brandon Johnson out of District 1. My background right now, what I do is Sierra Club, Untitled Chapter, Southwind Group Chair, Society of Alternative Resources, the initial group that started pushing for this sustainability board several years ago, Bag Free Wichita, and I serve with Adam as our liaison on the single-use plastic bag task force. I know there was a lot of talk about that at the last meeting, so I can give an update at some point. If you want to know, let me know. So I've done environmental stuff for a long time. And there are a lot of things that I know the city can do. We had a brochure, I should have brought them for you. You could see this whole list of things that we thought as a group, Society of Alternative Resources, would be important. Some of them are setting up composting, which is on that list if you look at the where we all applied. In District 1, we have Nudge Compost. We also applied. We have somebody that is a LEED certified architect in District 1 who also applied. We have some really great people that I hope all volunteered to help when we need to call upon them. So I've got some of these are, I mean, everything is my concern basically, but one of the big things I want to do is focus on the heat island Wichita has. Most bigger cities, this is not a big city, but we're a bigger city. Give me a 10-degree difference between here and outside of the city. You can tell it if you've got a temperature on your car. When you get off the highway and out into the country, the temperature goes down. We could lower that temperature here, but I know other people who are concerned about the tree canopy because we're losing trees steadily and they're not being replaced. Another thing would be what we can do with people who don't necessarily, not necessarily homeowners, but live in apartments, making sure that everybody can have charging stations. I had a friend who did his charging outside his window. He plugged it in the house and ran it outside the window to charge his car in the parking lot. He shouldn't have had to do that. But we can hopefully educate some of the apartment complex to do that and to offer recycling. And in the world, why they never do. I hear it all the time from people because of the field that I do, with plastic. And I recycle and they can't do it. One of the big things for me too is waste, which I said compost is one of those facets. But we do have some composting done with wastewater. I visited the wastewater center, but we need to make that more of a citywide so people can contribute their compost. And if you do industrial compost, you can also compost all those cups and plates and stuff. They're compostable. You can't compost them in your backyard. To me, it's important to have this board meet in the evenings, just so the public is more available to come that would like to come to the meeting. I feel like during the day it might be more difficult for people to leave work and come to this meeting. That is one of my concerns. And I want to make sure that this board does not only what the city needs, that's important, but also what can we do to benefit citizens, the residents of Wichita? How can we get stuff out there for them to do? You saw the list that Nina sent out. I emailed her back and I said, oh, you forgot about the airport. Did you have the water rebate? You have the water rebate on it, right?
Yep, we have that on.
People don't know about that. They really don't. Brandon Johnson puts it on his email, but people don't know about that. People need to know. Get water efficient toilets and stuff and you can get a rebate on it. the city should be able to offer more of those kind of programs. So anyway, that's pretty much me. If you have any questions about how to get rid of plastic?
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Great. Tammy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tammy Ray and I work for Evergy. So being the largest utility provider in the area, we have, and this is our largest customer base in Kansas, is the Wichita area. I've spent the last 10 years working in renewables. So I bring a perspective of the local utility, but I also bring a background of working with customers who want to generate a portion of their own power, as well as large scale utility renewables and the impact that has. You guys.
Tammy's also helped us to organize National Drive Electric Day at the West Star parking lot in the past. So, thank you.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate that. Don't believe we have Jennifer here tonight. And I know Deborah couldn't make it tonight. So we will. Okay, so the next item on the agenda was the approval of minutes from our December meeting. Everyone have a chance to review that. Was there any questions or edits bring up for approving that? And Sharon, am I able to make a motion to have those approved, or does that need to come from a member?
I think since we don't have a chair at this point, I think that you can go ahead and make the motion and then have a member second it.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from December 1st, 2021.
Second. 1 second.
Is that Lori or? Okay, and then we'll bring it to a vote. Is that correct, Sharon? Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm still getting into the swing of things here.
Yes, you would want to go ahead and have a vote on it based on just general procedural rules.
Mm-hmm.
We voting on the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone who approved, or who is voting to approve the minutes, say aye. I want to make sure I got you guys on Zoom as well. You can either unmute or put it in the chat. All right. Those.
He says aye.
Thank you. All right, minutes are approved. I'll get those. All right. Before we jump into discussion items, and we have a lot of things to go over, I do want to give the opportunity for public comment. So if there's anybody in attendance in the room or online, you have the opportunity to unmute or come up to the podium and provide a comment for up to 5 minutes. And we do ask that you state your name before making your comment. So I'll open it.
Thank you so much. I'll read you. I have been following, thank you. What a sterling group of folks doing this board. I have been following something called the National League of Women Voters Climate Action Group for more than a year. And I have a handout that they've devised. These folks are all over the nation, Nevada, Wisconsin, California. They're all over, and they've been looking at how municipalities are responding. They're going to prepare a best case scenario sometime soon, or a list that's based on their takeaways. They looked at lots of cities, what they're doing and not doing, and devised 10 actions that cities can take to reduce their greenhouse gases and 10 processes for local greenhouse gas reduction planning. 4 cities or governmental entities such as counties, they in their pre-survey in that 6 months while they were looking at various cities' responses, they concluded that the very biggest, most effective response is to target energy use. That is mostly fossil fuel. And how cities are reducing that. They looked at lots of actions such as planting trees, and that's good, except that's long-term. The biggest impact that they're seeing to affect climate is through energy policies. So thanks for listening. I'm gonna hand out this handout just for your interest. And if you have any questions about it, it's fresh in my mind. Their webinar, their meeting, their online meeting was this afternoon. So let me know.
That doesn't work, does it?
I do what I can.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any additional public comments at this time?
Yes, Joe Madden here on Zoom. Just wanted to make a couple of recommendations to the board, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
And just want to, well, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for serving on our sustainability board. We're really proud, that we're starting this initiative, and appreciate the opportunity to comment. I'm a member of the Society of Alternative Resources with Lori, and want to make a couple of suggestions for the sustainability board to consider. One is that there's a great opportunity to both save money in operations and maintenance costs and reduce greenhouse gases from tailpipe emissions by converting a city-owned vehicles to electric vehicles. And I was reading some really interesting articles about how some other cities have saved as much as $3,000 per vehicle in maintenance costs by converting to electric vehicles. For example, there's one town in Indiana where the police department converted their vehicles to electric. So just want to make that suggestion for consideration. And then another suggestion I want to make is, again, to help, with cleaner air and reducing greenhouse gases, as well as encourage, healthier lifestyles, is there's the League of American Bicyclists has a bicycle-friendly cities program. Wichita currently is a bronze level member, which we should be very proud of, achieving that. But there are 3 levels that are higher than that, and want to encourage us to consider pursuing higher levels to make the city even more bicycle friendly. So thank you for giving me a chance to speak.
I might make a comment that regarding the bike-friendly communities and the bronze status that Wichita is now. The Black Ped Board, which I'm representing, has always supported that. In fact, that's one of our goals, is to get that higher. We haven't addressed that in a while, but there is now a staff person, 50% dedicated to dealing with those types of issues and providing staff support. So hopefully with that support, we can reevaluate Wichita and see if we can move up from bronze to gold or silver.
Who's your staff person?
Tia Ramont, she's brand new. She's from, came to us from California, came to the city.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those people know what they're doing out there, man.
And yeah, she's hit the ground running. So
Yeah.
she's only been here about a month, but she's, you know, really well. She's got a lot of things on her plate though. besides-
Yeah, still.
But
Yeah, it's nice to have somebody that has that background though.
exactly.
Yeah, Tia and I have talked a little bit about sustainability. Is part of sort of the small staff that is dedicated towards. You know, I'm sure we'll see a lot of activity, joint projects with Wichita Transit, the works among other. Okay, doesn't look like we have any. And read this out loud. Esther's saying, something I heard at the beginning of recycling. I know a lot of people don't recycle because of the extra service costs. And we'll definitely need more research on the logistics. It would be good to consider flipping the narrative and making recycling equivalent for cheaper than normal disposal services to incentivize people to recycle.
That's very true. A lot of people don't do it. They can't afford it. Some people don't have trash at all because they can.
And we'll get into, you know, we're definitely gonna leave some time for discussion of some strategy, initial planning. But right now, there's no more public comments, and we'll go ahead and move into our discussion items. Our first one being review of the bylaws. You all had a chance to review the draft bylaws that Sharon created. So we'll go ahead and pull those up for you all to see. All right. As of right now, I don't believe that I've received any edits or additions to the draft bylaws. Were there any points in here that you all wanted to discuss or ask questions about before we approve these as our governing rules?
The only thing I noticed is why is where underlined like that? It's probably just a formatting issue.
I think that's just because it's in Word and it's trying to give some proper grammar.
Okay.
So once this is all completed and put into a PDF document, this should be cleaned up quite a bit.
It seemed pretty standard to me. I imagine most of the boards would just exactly like that.
Mhm.
And are the meetings, is it in there or is it open and flexible? Record.
I believe that in here, when I read these, it doesn't state that we need to have monthly meetings, but that was left open to the board's discretion from the ordinance. So you have to meet at least quarterly per the ordinance, but you are welcome to increase that frequency.
I think last meeting, I think we decided we did want to meet monthly for
Mhm.
at least a period of time, not forever.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not necessarily in the bylaws, it's, you all can be the ones to determine that as time goes on. And that's how it's set up right now. Okay. Well, if there are no edits or additions, then I think we can go ahead and adopt these bylaws. Sharon, I assume it's the same process of me making a motion and having a second?
Yes, either you or one of the board members. We just need a motion to approve and then approval by a quorum or a majority of the folks that are there.
Okay. Well, then I will go ahead and move that we approve the bylaws as presented. Do I have a second? All right, all those in favor of approving the bylaws, say aye. Any opposed?
Getting some eyes in the chat up there too.
Thank you. All right, so bylaws are adopted, and we will go ahead and I'll make sure Sharon gets those all set up for you. Thank you so much, Sharon, for getting that together for us. Very much appreciate that. Okay, so next item on our agenda is elections. So the ordinance did state that we have to elect at least 2 positions, that being chair and vice chair. And we have not received any nominations or anything. And so at this point in time, I will open it up to nominations for chair, and then we will move on to vice chair.
I make a motion, Ms. Lombard to be the chairman of this committee.
Second.
Other
Like kind of a unanimous vote.
Okay. Perfect. So we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of electing Laura Lombard as Sustainability Integration Board Chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Laura, congratulations. You are. All right, and then for our vice chair, do you have any nominations?
Turn the paper.
If you wish, yes.
I will move that Philip is our vice chair.
I will second.
All right. All those in favor of electing Philip Simon as Sustainability Vice Chair, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations, you are new Vice Chair.
We do have a quorum, don't we?
Yes.
Good question. There's 7 of us.
All right, that concludes our elections, as we didn't have any other positions. And it did not sound like anyone had requested any additional for this board. So the next item on our agenda was just a brief conversation about our recurring. I know that there has been talk about wanting to keep evenings. But we also know that this is a very large board with 14 total members. And we do have some people with limited evening availability. And so I want to pose to the group of trying to find an acceptable frequency to either have alternating meetings, or if you would like to solely keep things in the evening, And this is a discussion you all can have amongst yourselves. I just want to make sure that this is a decision that is coming from you all, because this will affect how you guys operate essentially. And so this is a decision that essentially comes down to.
Wait, there's 3 people that haven't been appointed yet. And who is missing tonight?
We are missing Sheena Stevens. Deborah normally make this time, but she had a conflict. And then Greg Allison, who is our stormwater appointee, does have some limited times, so that does become difficult. It looks like we do have the possibility to potentially do an afternoon meeting time that would meet quorum, but we're also cognizant of the fact that quorum can change depending on who our remaining individuals are who get appointed. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention since we have had people who haven't been able to make this.
Is it acceptable to do 1 month, if we're gonna do monthly for the time being, do 1 month evening, 1 month afternoon, 1 month next month evening? I mean, is that an acceptable approach or is it an all-in?
It is, if you all decide that that is acceptable. But even decide to do afternoon. But I want to ensure that I'm making the effort for all of our board members.
We've gotten the feedback from others in terms of the timing. Have quite a few people expressed that afternoons would be better for them, or is it the evening we're picking that's been a problem, or what's kind of been the feedback overall from that?
One of the challenges that we face is that a lot of our members are on other boards, so there's conflicting times there. And just trying to, open up a calendar with, 11 or more people and trying to find that one time that lines up is really time intensive and can be very, very challenging. So, there could be potential to find a recurring time in the afternoon that works the best for some people on a different date than what we've proposed, or there are possibilities out there that we may not have explored just yet, but for the sake of all of our sanity and trying not to bombard people with polls to fill out, trying to find the sort of the simplest way forward is how we've kind of been going about it.
I like your idea of maybe the evening 1 month and the later afternoon.
How is this meeting publicized that people would know to be here other than by me?
It is published through the city manager's office, so we
Do you have a mailing list or something that he sends it to?
I'm not sure. I can't check on that.
I'm just thinking if we alternate, it's always going to be confusing. No one's ever going to know which one it is.
One thing we are trying to
To
do
really be able to
is-
get it out somehow.
One thing we are trying to do is revamp our one of our website pages to specifically talk more about the board. It does cover a lot of sustainability topics, but we want to cater that to the board. And that would have a little bit more information on when we're meeting. It would have a set schedule up there that's very plain to see so that people could know well in advance when we're meeting. We do have that set schedule. You'll know months in advance of when things are.
We do even months, afternoon, odd months, the opposites. So that way they know, we know the even months are going to be, afternoon or the other way around. So that can be published that way. So we can know that way instead of just alternating. We can say even months are this and odd months are this.
That works. We're doing an evening one this month, so we could do an afternoon next month, and that gets us on that schedule.
Schedule, yes.
We'll say Wednesdays tend to be very good on my side. I don't know about other people, but this is a good day of the week.
Yeah, that seems to be the general thought.
I have a conflict. Right now I have a conflict, but I left that conflict to come here. So Wednesdays are from 4 to 7.
Zoom would continue to be an option, right?
Yes, and, right, we'll never, probably, they never, but we'll probably never require you to be physically in this room. There will be options, based on your own availability. Things like that.
We've gotten used to doing Zoom, and it's actually a lot easier for the public to tune in. Well, so if we can just always do Zoom, even if COVID's gone, like it ever will be, we can meet in person and not have a problem, but still do Zoom. Because it does, I mean, people are here, some are staff, but I mean, I know a couple people here that are on opposite sides of town from each other. They're on Zoom, so it's a good idea to keep doing the Zoom regardless.
Well, I would agree.
Isn't it?
Of course, Zoom wouldn't help me in my conflict that I have,
Well, no, that's true.
others as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like, Jack, on the even months, maybe something around 2 might make more sense for you.
That'd be perfect.
I agree on both ends.
So we're gonna do Wednesdays? Or we're gonna do some different day in the afternoon?
We would probably pick something else depending on, availability. I don't know for sure that Wednesday afternoon would get us to quorum, so we have to assess that.
Okay, we having this on a Thursday evening. Can we have next month on a Thursday afternoon?
Potential.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we could do something like that. I would just need to send out a poll to make sure that we're able to make quorum.
Okay, because that makes a lot of sense. Because now you can move around on the job a little bit to participate in these meetings as well, you know, instead of taking the evenings, because like last night I had my other board meeting and I had an office meeting tonight. I'm like, oh man, these evenings, am I ever gonna be able to relax? So yes, I will be willing to participate in something like that. And I like the Zoom meetings a lot better. I personally cannot take the shot, period, at all. So my ability to move around in groups is very limited because my cancer has my immune system down. So I can't take the COVID shot, period. I went to the doctor to try to get it taken and they refused to give it to me. So I like the Zoom opportunities that we have to meet. If we can just make a decision on if we're gonna have it 1 month and once in the evening and once in the afternoon, that sounds perfect on Zoom. That sounds perfect.
Okay. Okay. So basically what I'm hearing is that we do agree that there's potential to switch off. And what I will do then is work with you guys to find a time works in the afternoon. And if you need to adjust an evening day or time, we can do that as well. Wanted to make sure that that was forward with that. So moving along, committees is the next thing on our discussion item for the agenda. I know you guys had a lot of thoughts about this. Laura, you sent some information about that. So basically, I want to give you guys the opportunity to discuss this and formulate some ideas, and we can put things down on paper if we're able to reach agreement. But Laura, did you want to go ahead and start out by telling us about your sort of structure idea, and we can open it up to discussion and other options as well from there.
Yeah, so I'd sent Nina a proposal, so to speak, of what we might look at for committees. And basically the structure around it would be that each of us on the board, or maybe 2 of us, depending on how many committees we need or how much leadership we think we need each, would create a committee around, could be energy efficiency, could be transportation, could be X, Y, and Z topic heads. And then we go out into the community and recruit people who are relevant to that topic to join a committee of maybe 5 or 6 people in addition to the committee heads. Within those committees, what they would do then is determine what is at least one actionable goal they can get done in the next year. And this goes to the conversation we had last time where we were saying, we want to have an overarching goal for the board and a vision for Wichita, but we also want to have some actionable items come out of this first year. So we may not solve all of Wichita's sustainability goals and problems, but we're at least having each committee commit to one goal that they're going to make sure happens this year in our first year of this sustainability board happening. So I also like this structure because that way we can bring a lot more of the community in. I know there are a lot of people who maybe weren't able to get on the board, but would really like to participate and really help the city in some form or another. So that was also one of the goals of the city, was to make sure we have a lot of good community participation. I don't remember what else I wrote, but that's kind of the gist of it. I gave her a nice long thing. Oh, and I talked about us as our part of what we're doing as a board then is that we're creating kind of the overall vision of what we want for Wichita. We're helping kind of show each of these committees what we'd like to see as a whole. We're working with maybe WSU and other entities who are working on the sustainability plan for Wichita. We're monitoring that, adding to that. And that's what we're really doing at this level. But then a lot of the good actual action items are happening at the committee levels. Up there for
All I'm thinking is, oh boy, that means I'm gonna have more meetings.
at least one. Well, it could be, Lori, that in the case of someone like you, where you're already very well versed in certain areas, you take onto that particular committee, and you already kind of know the right players to begin with, in a sense. So
I can help fill out a lot of these committees.
Mhm. Yeah. And then again, it's really the goal of that committee to make sure an actionable item happens in this next year. But that also dictates you've got to figure out something that is actionable within roughly a year.
How does that comply with the Meetings Open Records Act as far as these committees go?
So committees can have no more than 3 members to ensure that we're HOMA compliant. So we recommend.
So no more than 3 from this board.
That's correct. But you can have additional members of the public. You can have staff on there to help guide. It's not quite the same level as a board. I don't know, Sharon, if you have anything to add to that.
No, you just can't have more than a quorum of your board members on any committee, or a quorum of the board members can't discuss a particular topic unless it is within the confines of the meeting. So you can certainly have as many folks as you want who are willing to volunteer their time and serve on these subcommittees.
Thank you.
Lord, just a quick, when you talk about subcommittees and actions, I mean, the bylaws say our actions are purely advisory only. How do you turn a committee into a measurable action?
Maybe it's something where the committee's action is that they're making a recommendation to the city to do X.
That's what I was trying to do. If not, is this like
So they're gonna give us a recommendation.
live, like we're gonna do something, or are we making the recommendation to do something?
We're gonna get recommendations from them. We'll come back to board, we'll discuss it. We'll pass as a motion to the council for them to make a recommendation.
So the subcommittee is just to get
Good ideas on the table.
okay, yeah, get those things, that brain power in one room.
Yeah.
What are our parties? Okay, that makes sense.
There'll be a lot of conversations with staff. So if staff already has a project that may be in the works, then might bring in some committee members or the general board to advise or assistance on that. So it may not necessarily, I don't know if everything will be going to the board. It could just be, continuing projects like that, but pretty open at this point.
Any other kind of thoughts on, is there a better structure? Is there, or some modifications that might be or
Probably a good idea because this is such a broad area. Nice to focus in on. That we think we can do something and then
Gives these board members the opportunity to take something and run with it, essentially that way.
exactly? It gives
So everyone has a part to play.
Well, we've got a lot of great people who already have a lot of expertise in certain key areas. So if they can take that leadership and then kind of, you know, again, get more community support involved, I think it helps for a lot of reasons to be able to help, you know, have this committee structure.
It'll be easier with smaller groups from the board. Find that with the public.
Then when we have these meetings, we can all kind of report back on what's happened within the committees, comment on each other's, you know, give advice, those types of things. But I think that's a nice way to hopefully get a fair amount done within a short amount of time while making sure the community is involved.
So each committee probably needs to think, this is the one thing we want to accomplish this year, and that's what we want to work on and bring that back. We're not trying to do like 9 things at each committee. This is the top, our overarching one we want to do, and so we give maybe about 13 or 14 things that we work on in this 1 year.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm here as a representative from the Bike Ped Board. I wonder if there'd be any value to be on the agenda to report back what Bike Ped Board is doing in terms, and mostly our work has been less policy and more projects, those kinds of recommendations.
I would say for both yours and for the plastic bag one too, I think, you know, having some updates on what's going on or you know, other relevant, you know, either committees or agencies that, again, if there's something going on within your respective agency that's relevant to this group, then great. Yeah, absolutely have reports on that.
Bike Ped Board will be making a recommendation to the council. Share that at some point in time on CIP and the operating. So
We discussed trees last committee meeting, and then that next park board meeting, the fellow from the mayor's office, I forget his name. He brought a presentation in, it kind of compared what we have as a tree policy to other cities of our size. I don't know if everyone's seen that, but it should be in the last park board meeting minutes from like December, I believe it is. I know he's working on some kind of policy, whatever, somewhere that kind of is in between and some of what other cities have of our general size. So I'll have to bring to the next meeting. I just don't remember all the facts of it, but he's working on a policy to kind of get back to the Parks Department. Yes. Or a tree ordinance.
Right, so I would encourage you all then, you know, for our next meeting or the next meetings after to bring forth any updates from your respective board, if you're on one, or any other, you know, information that we can sort of tack on to the agenda. I know we have a lot to cover always, but I think those things will be helpful in providing some context for what the city is doing. What we can potentially do forward.
I think my updates would be relatively brief, several minutes. Or something really.
Spark other ideas too, potentially. And have a better understanding of what's already going on too, right? A lot of moving parts we're gonna have to keep track of.
Go back over this.
You want to by next meeting be able to come up with the list of the committees and vote on that and
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent goal. Maybe that we all send ideas to Nina between now and the next meeting. Topic areas we can, if we have too many, we can figure out how we're gonna.
Doesn't it all tie back to whatever the strategies determine, right? You know, as a group, you determine your strategy, you build your committees that support that. So, because again, as we all know, sustainability can be huge. So we narrow down that strategy, those things that are the most important, and then build the committees out based on that.
Isn't there in this ordinance, part of the ordinance that gives a list of things that they want to accomplish?
It's pretty broad. So it's mostly, general things like economic security and outreach and things like that. So it doesn't dig into the specifics. And it sort of leaves it up to the board's discretion and interpretation.
Maybe I'm thinking about the website when we applied. It has a little list of.
I know it has goals. Those are, again, some of those, there are broad ones. It does provide some examples, but if that's helpful, that might be a place to start. I know it does talk about waste, energy, and several other things that are all components of environmental sustainability. So,
And maybe as we send you what our ideas are for committees, put those in there with it. So that we know that that is the overarching, what the city was asking for.
right.
And how we can maybe work any of our committees that we think is important under one of those.
Right, yeah, and I see what you're talking about here, the sort of 5 goals. So you're talking about economic opportunities, and that sort of pairs with energy use and clean energy, emissions reduction, climate resiliency planning, including resource conservation and things of that nature, waste material management practices, community outreach, and then affordability and resiliency of all services, so that equity component for residents. And so it does give some broader ideas, but it doesn't, you guys can sort of take that and run with it as to how do we implement these things, or how specific do we want to get, or how far do we want to take this, or do we want to do a policy or a project or program or, something of that nature to get this moved.
Maybe what we need to do is kind of the next round, have that more high level discussion like you're saying, and then the latter part would be figuring out what our committees are going to be from that. But I agree with you. I think we need to have a good vision of where we want to go and what our bigger overarching goals are, both for a year and maybe the first year we're on board for 2 years. So at least 2 years out, and maybe even look a little further. Then we can scale that back to what are we doing this year on which committees and go forward that way. So spend a lot more time on that than on the kind of more administrative that we've had to the first 2 meetings.
And that was sort of the next item on the agenda, was sort of transitioning into more discussion about strategy and goal setting, at least for a year or longer. So if you guys want to move on to that, we can table committees.
Beyond the
Everybody
structure.
can send their committee ideas to Nina,
Yeah.
then she can compile those for us and bring them back next time, and we can decide what we want to go with.
We've got 14 board members. We could probably have up to 14, although 14 is a lot to manage. Maybe we would look at 7 that we're really into. We each take, or 2 of us are in each committee.
I guess I made a list of topics that I would like to get some feedback from you all online and here. From a historical perspective, there were some issues I dealt with when I was dealing with those issues. And so I'll just read them off real quick and see if any comments on them. I suggested one issue that I dealt with many years ago was the Ark River water. I don't know if these are all mostly environmental.
Say it one more time. I know it's a mask thing.
Arkansas River water quality.
Okay, thank you.
We can control of it anyway.
That's right. The contaminated sites in Wichita, 2 big ones. I remember reading an article in the paper not too long ago. I think the Eagle conducted a survey about the site that underlies Old Town and all of that's called Gilbert Mosley. And we probably need to get a staff update on that if that's of interest to anybody, but that Eagle article I thought I should have taken care of that. And I think about 80% of that site is clean, but don't quote me on that, but it seems like some good progress has been made. And I don't know if that Eagle article stimulated any discussion among city staff or elected officials. Throw that out there. Long-term sustainability, public water supply, the infrastructure associated with that, quantity of water, quality of water, that type of thing. That ties into the Little Arkansas River Aquifer Restoration Program. Of course, air quality, maybe climate change, and I think one of the public comment was made about climate change, what you can do locally. I think there's a lot of interesting information out on the internet about that. And then waste management. Was my last one that has to do with recycling and all the issues associated with that. I will make a comment, and again, this is from a historical perspective, that the landfill has a compost project. I think they take all of the waste from Park Department. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with that, but there was, and maybe still is, active composting program, I guess you'd call it. There's a designated site at the Brooks landfill. And it's now no longer in use, but at one time the landfill, the methane gas from the landfill was sold to a facility over in Colwich. So the methane was that was a very sustainable and productive project. But I don't think it's anymore, but it was there. And again, like I said, this is historical, but yeah, recycling, a number of years ago, I think Philip was involved. We had a project called WIRE, Wichita Initiative to Renew the Environment. It surveyed a number of people. I think the top 3 issues that were listed in this, about 10 years old now, Philip, but recycling was up there. Ark River quality was up there, and water quality and water quantity as well.
At the time, we had what, 22 trash companies? We counted at the time. We did that initially. We had the time, what, 22 trash companies? Was it?
Yeah, and before that, there were 60.
There are less now.
There are less now,
Less than that.
and that's privatization. Private solid waste companies, they're not too excited about some of the initiatives that would take place. Recycling, that would put a lot of them out of business, they claim, so.
Recycling does. Recycling is very expensive,
Right.
much more than what we are paying.
Yes. So anyway, that was my list. Some of those, there might be ongoing staff.
Yeah, I did see your email about that. I haven't had a chance to dig into that quite just yet, but you know, some of these things are areas where the city can give updates on that, provide you guys.
You think it's a good list? It's sort of, like I said, some of it's historical. I don't know. Updates would definitely be a benefit.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that information.
Definitely a good start to a list, and I would add transportation. So in terms of,
Yeah, active transportation was my first one. Since I'm with the Bike Ped Board, I mentioned that. And WAMPO has a active transportation committee, and of course that covers all of Sedgwick County and a little bit of Butler and Sumner. And of course, the city of Wichita has the Bike Board.
Who's the WAMPO? There somebody from WAMPO on this board?
I am.
Oh, you're from WAMPO? I thought you were Bike Ped.
Well, I'm both.
I'm also on WAMPO's board.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Well, you're on the technical advisory committee.
Yes.
I thought
And we have a subcommittee on.
Right.
I don't know why, but I thought that might have been one of the 7 groups that was going to be on this board. No? Maybe not. Maybe I'm not remembering that right.
but yet they are.
Yeah. Well represented with WAMPO.
Okay.
And then, you know, energy efficiency, and I think that'll be a good one for us. Energy efficiency and renewable energy kind of together to some degree.
What I wonder about, if you're talking about Gilbert and Mosley, now that they've got ICT 21, what is that land like out there where the old refinery was? Have you driven up 135? They got this big old paint on the side of one of the old tanks. It says ICT 21 Business District. They're gonna put stuff out there.
Yeah,
Safe. I don't know.
that's a good question. I was peripherally involved in when Derby, actually, I can't remember all the different names that refinery had moved away. And the goal at that time was to see if there is a cleanup program there in that entire north industrial area. And the refinery itself has a specific cleanup program in place.
Right. That's what I wondered was how, if that's
And
complete or not.
I
Or they build on it.
That's another update thing, but yeah, the goal was to, it's industrially zoned and work out some way, and it's possible. I'm just sort of guessing on this, but at the time when I looked at it a number of years ago, we thought it might be a good environmental, I don't know about the ICT, whatever, but
Yeah. Cornejo that's taken that on.
yeah, I think you could actually develop something there. Originally, it wasn't the most beautiful thing to see as you came into the city, so it'd be hopefully some kind of development that would, aesthetically pleasing or screened from the view. But you could pave over that area, and as long as the environmental could prevent problems occurring, such as the parking lot where the old Coleman building used to be. It's a couple blocks away from Interest. That's now a parking lot. There's still contamination in there, but the risk is lowered considerably by paving over. Anyway, I hope I didn't take you off topic.
Other topic areas do we think would be good to have at least on this kind of starter list?
Green canopy.
And that is something that is on our radar, well, so, potentially, projects down the road, but, nothing certain now, definitely something to look at. That, and I know you mentioned heat islands earlier, also something that, we're looking at, especially with the, air quality, and we know that max standard revised the next year, so that will be something that is very crucial for getting our emissions down.
To be
What about something like when the city does new builds, which is rare? It's very rare. They don't usually build new stuff. But making sure that they do follow environmental standards,
a building.
like a LEED building, but you don't have to be LEED certified. Because that's expensive. It's like our airport is LEED standards, but it's not certified because it costs too much. But any new builds are not.
Looking at even the city, looking at redoing City Hall, not rebuilding it, but
Right, and when they do any remodeling,
remodeling.
that kind of thing to see. There's a lot that you can do. I had just read an article on this. And I was like, that's fabulous. There are companies that do that. But what we should be doing that here. It would be cost savings in the long run. And it would be a lot more sustainable and it would not put that into the air.
Hopefully that's some of what's being done with the overarching sustainability plan that it's my understanding is being worked on with WSU. But, you know, some of those financial analysis, okay, you redo City Hall, what kind of cost savings is that going to show over the course of X amount of years? That type of work should definitely be part of, what we're talking about, but any type of plan that.
So, and I didn't want to interrupt you guys while you guys were brainstorming, but one thing I did want to bring up in this meeting was, you know, we've talked before about WSU's Environmental Finance Center and the work that they're doing. And so we are still working with them, and they're working really hard on developing this list of potential initiatives that will really help drive sustainability in the future.
I do see that Tanya's with us. Is she gonna give us any details?
So I'll provide you with a little bit right now, but it's, we're still working through things right now, so we're not quite ready to, sort of publicize everything. Still having conversations.
A little bit of information would be great.
But let me just show you, I did plan on showing you sort of the draft matrix that they had developed as a way to assess some of these initiatives. And so, when we do get this final product, we'll be looking at roughly 100 different potential initiatives that the city could implement. And so that's, it will help to kind of see prioritized areas based on how much impact they have in different sort of criteria. And while this is all something that's very much in the works, once we get that, it will help to spur some ideas in you guys. You can take those ideas, you can see how they fit in with this overarching strategy. You can see, there might be other things that we're like, oh, we need to think about that as well. That didn't quite make it to the table. But just to give you guys an idea, we have, they're putting together different policies, programs, and projects, and different goals as a way to, see how we could best move forward. And so they hit on multiple different areas of sustainability. And so these
Pretty much too small for me to see. From clear back here.
Hi, this is Tanya. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi,
Yeah, hi,
Tanya.
Tanya.
Hi. I was just gonna echo what Nina said. Yeah, we're putting together this great list of projects that are included in work that the city of Wichita and other groups have done already. We've mined those for all sorts of great sustainability initiatives and projects that folks have suggested over the last number of years. We're using those ACE and CDP scoring systems to find other ways that, other projects and things and policies that might amp up our scores a little bit in those scoring systems. We're also listening in to these meetings that you're having and, frantically taking notes on all of the things that you're suggesting here today. And, putting those in this really long list, not everything. I mean, we could have a list of 3,000 things that we could do, but we'll really tailor those. We'll have a huge list, but maybe not everything under the sun, but we're going to have a list that's workable of a lot of options. And like Nina said, we're going to have this matrix that'll help kind of hone those down. And then in the end, you're going to have a roadmap that really, you can take and see what might work. This isn't going to be the end all be all list of here's 1, 2, 3 that you should do. Again, it's going to be taking this information, seeing what your board's goals are, seeing what the city's, what works in the city budget and all those other things. But this is going to be hopefully a really good tool for your tool chest as you start thinking about making that strategic plan for our community. We just want this to be a really good jumping off point with a lot of great information from other communities, from our own community, from experts here and out there across the US. So if there's anything for sure that you don't want us to leave out of the list, please give those to Nina and she can pass those along to us.
Thank you, Tanya.
What's the timeline on the deliverable?
So we are going to be chatting with EFC towards the end of this month. And Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, but sounds like we'll have something in February.
Yeah, March is the end all be all, but we're hoping to show a draft end of February, beginning of March to this group before we do like the big final draft public release.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. That just gives you an idea that, there's been a lot of thought put into different projects and policies and things like that would be done.
A lot of the things that we've talked about tonight amongst ourselves here, I couldn't really see it either, but does that fit a lot of what's already being talked about there?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of overlap. One of the things is the criteria has gone back and forth as to, what do we include, what's important to sort of evaluate. But a lot of those things are, the natural resources and preservation and how does it financially sort of pan out? How does this work for a general community benefit? How does it work for equity? How does it affect natural hazard mitigation, things like that? So it doesn't, basically what we've sort of looked at hasn't been, the criteria hasn't been too specific, like looking at active transportation or something, but it sort of has these broad buckets to group different projects and policies to make sure that we are covering all aspects of sustainability, sort of that Venn diagram of making sure we're looking at the economic impacts, the environmental impacts.
The other thing to see is we're kind of formulating what we'd like to see in our vision, how it overlaps, and how can we help influence that if it doesn't fully overlap yet. I guess that's maybe our discussion in March, it sounds like.
Yeah, it'll be great to see that.
Yeah, so, I think once we have our next conversation and I know there's a revision coming down the road. Once we get a better idea and bring that back to you guys and workshop some more, get a better, I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of sort of where we're at when this is coming down the pipeline, so that you know that there are potential projects and you're not starting from scratch or anything like that. There are ideas out there that are being generated and sort of prioritized, at least initially.
Me too, then when we're creating these committees. So for example, if we had a committee on water, for example, and some of the projects are there, maybe what committees can do is really give good community feedback on which ones the community itself would really like to see prioritized first. Thanks, Stu. Does that fit in with your thinking of this, or?
Yeah, well, and that fits in the general thinking of the board as well, because one of the biggest components, maybe not biggest, but one of the main components is bringing in that public input and prioritizing those projects that they want to see. So I think with, obviously, it sort of depends on how you guys structure the committees, but there will potentially be a large public aspect sort of helping provide feedback and comment on work that's being proposed or created.
So do we feel confident that that could be on the agenda for the February meeting?
At the March meeting or
I
the,
think, she said a draft in February, but
It sounds like we could have something more substantial to look at in February. But the final report in March. So we'll plan for February, but we'll know that things are still sort of in flux.
I think that's really going to help us to formulate.
Tanya says we can have some pieces for you to look at in February.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'll help us kind of tailor our committees too. That'll really help with that. Also our overarching strategy, whatnot, to have that information.
Yeah, and we're trying, we've been mindful of not moving too far ahead without getting this feedback as well. Definitely don't want to be running in parallel. We want to make sure that things are intertwining and making use of all the resources that we have at our disposal. Any other comments or discussion on strategy at the moment?
I think we all have some homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said being able to see that it's going to be, I think, very helpful in terms of how we really formulate what our overarching strategies are going to be next time.
And I'm gonna work to continually update that list of, what the city has done previously, especially because updates are always needed. The information, might be from 2012. Just, I'll keep you guys updated as far as sharing more of those resources. I'm getting some updates from some of the things that Jack had talked about tonight. Okay, that's all I had for today. Was there any other items that need to be addressed today that anyone wants to bring up before we adjourn? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
I think we can actually just say adjourn. I don't
Okay,
think we have to
adjourned.
vote.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks.